Hello again. We are continuing our readings in the book, What is Man, Adam, Alien, or Ape? In this episode, we're going to begin Chapter 10. We completed Chapter 9, a study of the relationship between the human mind and the human brain. In Chapter 9, we were able to draw the conclusion that the mind was something quite different from the brain, and that it had an existence that was independent of the material brain and its functions. Well, now in Chapter 10, we move on to the question of worldviews, and the introduction to this chapter reads as follows. In a now defunct internet blog, atheist Richard Dawkins once described me as a wingnut, which can be freely translated as a crazy person or someone lacking mental abilities. Why? You'll have to ask him. But I suspect it was because he couldn't get his head around the fact that as a highly qualified research scientist and university teacher, I nevertheless believed the Bible. Would he, I wonder, say the same of intellectual giants and Christians such as Isaac Newton, who discovered the laws of gravity and motion, Michael Faraday, who gave us electricity, Clerk Maxwell, whose electromagnetic field theory first explained light and radiation? What about Werner Heisenberg, who originated quantum mechanics, and Arno Penzias, the radio astronomer and 1978 Nobel Prize winner? These are all people who were both scientists and Bible believers. Now, the huge philosophical gulf between Dawkins and Bible-believing scientists arises from their respective worldviews. To an atheist, a scientific worldview is utterly incompatible with a religious worldview. To a Christian, a biblical worldview embraces both science and faith and believes in a God who has created all things and continues to sustain them. So in this chapter, we shall discuss worldviews, what they are and how they differ, before explaining the essential features of a biblical worldview in the final section of the book. This chapter, therefore, serves as a bridge linking our earlier exploration of humanity to the Bible's teaching on the nature of man. Chapter heading is Worldviews at War, and its subheading on the nature of reality. Quotation heads the chapter. Even more purposeless, more void of meaning, is the world which science presents for our belief. Amid such a world, if anywhere, our ideals henceforth must find a home. That man is the product of causes which had no prevision of the end they were achieving, that his origin, his growth, his hopes and fears, his loves and his beliefs are but the outcome of accidental collocations of atoms. All these things, if not quite beyond dispute, are yet so nearly certain that no philosophy which rejects them can hope to stand. Only on the firm foundation of unyielding despair can the soul's habitation henceforth be safely built. That is a quotation from atheist philosopher Bertrand Russell, writing in 1903. And then a second chapter heading quote is this: God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And that is the Apostle John, writing in the Bible around AD 68. The picture on the birthday card showed a spherical goldfish bowl containing 2 goldfish and a mobile radio miraculously working underwater. The conversation went as follows. Radio, quotes, Liverpool has just scored from a corner, close quotes. First fish, what is a corner? Second fish, I've no idea. Liverpool, of course, means UK's Liverpool Football Club, and you will find the joke either hilarious or incomprehensible. If the latter, you'll have to ask a soccer fan or a philosopher. You find the soccer fan, and I'll provide the philosopher, specifically Immanuel Kant, 1724 to 1804, the German philosopher who invented the term worldview. That's Weltanschauung in the German language. And he invented it to describe the way we interpret the world around us, both as regards what it means and how we relate to it. The goldfish have no concept of a corner because their world, the spherical bowl, contains no such thing. There's no place for corners in their worldview. But the birthday card humour is not really about goldfish bowls. It's about us. It offers a shrewd commentary on the fact that we human beings differ greatly among ourselves in the way we perceive the world around us. This is starkly demonstrated by the 2 quotations that head this chapter. Bertrand Russell's atheistic, almost nihilistic worldview offers no hope for a meaning in life, but John's God-centered worldview holds out the prospect of love, deliverance, and eternal life for those who embrace it. The purpose of this chapter, then, is to provide a bridge between the first 2 parts of this book and the final part. In chapter 1, as we have seen, we examined in some detail how secularism, materialism, and atheism seek to explain life, the universe, and everything. I hope that I have shown that by leaving God out of the equation, all such theories and speculations, together with the worldviews they support, actually offer no ultimate explanations at all. In this chapter, I am going to introduce a biblical worldview that, in my opinion, both as a scientist and a Christian, does provide answers to ultimate questions. It also explains why, as argued in earlier chapters, attempts to airbrush God out of the picture always end up in scientific and philosophical blind alleys. Subheading: Worldviews and Axioms. Of course, our 2 chapter headings, Worldviews, exist alongside an almost continuous spectrum of possible alternatives. But wherever you stand on that spectrum, 3 things must be obvious. 1. Whether we know it or not, each of us has a worldview of some kind. 2. Not all worldviews can be true. And 3. The worldview we adopt will have a profound impact on our life. Every belief system has its own worldview, even those belief systems that believe that they have no beliefs. However, I distinguish between a belief system and a worldview in the same way as we distinguish between a house and its foundations. That is, I'm using worldview to mean the underlying assumptions or presuppositions on which a belief system must be based. A worldview consists of ideas we perceive to be true or self-evident, even though we can't prove their truth to other people. Science and mathematics are built on the foundation of assumptions called axioms. Scientific axioms include the belief that the natural world is governed by laws that do not change from day to day or place to place, and that humans possess the ability to comprehend the natural world. In mathematics, an axiom is a starting point from which other statements can be logically derived. Similarly, religions are based on what some philosophers call warranted beliefs, personal convictions that certain things are true and others false. Valid beliefs and axioms are those that can be reinforced by experience, even though they cannot be proved by formal logic or mathematical theorems. Thus, Bertrand Russell's worldview was based on the belief that God does not exist, while John's rests on the opposite conviction that he does. In both cases, an appeal is made to experience. Russell asserts that there is no scientific evidence of God's existence, which is plainly not so, as we saw in chapter 2, where we considered the origin of the laws of nature. His stance also involves the further and obviously false assumption that science is the only valid source of genuine experience and true knowledge. On the other hand, John presents his personal experience of the life and teaching of Jesus Christ as evidence for the reality of God, explaining that he wrote his gospel, quotes, that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you might have life in his name. Neither claim will satisfy everyone, because different people's worldviews are built on different assumptions. A person's worldview can change, of course, but only as a result of personal experience or personal reasoning, by which their basic assumptions are replaced by new ones. But how are we to know which assumptions are true and which are false? Or to put it another way, how can we recognize which basic assumptions, if any, represent reality as distinct from error or illusion? Let's ponder this question for a while. Subheading: Can we access reality? I hope you haven't forgotten the analogy of chapter 9, because we need to revisit it. Not totally satisfied with the verdicts of the realtors we have seen and heard about, realtors 2 and 3, who visit our imaginary house, which represents the human brain, You decide to consult a couple more, but Rialto 3, who lifted your spirits, is followed by Rialto 4, who gets you worried again. She arrives at your garden gate, but declines to enter the property. Why? She explains that the house is a private world that only you, yourself, can experience. No one else can enter and look around, nor can you visit anyone else. Like her, you are denied access to other properties, imprisoned forever in your own thoughts. If in the last analysis, she argues, we can only believe things on the basis of our own subjective observations, how can we be sure that these observations provide access to the same reality as others see and talk about it? According to cosmologists Stephen Hawking and Leonard Mlodinow, in their book The Grand Design, we can't be sure. They write, quotes, "These examples bring us to a conclusion that will be important in this book. There is no picture-independent or theory-independent concept of reality. Instead, we will adopt a view that we will call model-dependent realism. The idea that a physical theory or world picture is a model and a set of rules that connect the elements of the model to observation. This provides a framework with which to interpret modern science." Close quote. They continue, according to model-dependent realism, it is pointless to ask whether a model is real, only that it agrees with observation. So, according to Hawking and his co-author, our observations can never connect us with reality, whatever that might be, but can only help us build models that may or may not represent reality. They would argue, correctly, that we believe in electromagnetic waves not because we can see them oscillating in the void, but because they offer a convenient explanation of the colors we see, the heat we feel, and the radio broadcasts and signals that we hear when we turn on our televisions. A direct sensation allows us to model these unseen electromagnetic waves, but whether or not the model corresponds to reality, they say, we shall never know. Hawking and his co-author don't seem to understand that their model-dependent realism is actually what philosophers have long called anti-realism, the very opposite of realism, which, according to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, involves, quotes, the metaphysical commitment to the existence of a mind-independent reality. So, is there a real reality out there beyond our inner experiences? How you answer that question will profoundly affect your worldview. So let's think about it. I think that's a suitable point at which to end this particular episode. The subheading which will follow in the next episode is entitled, "Is Reality Real?" And we invoke the arrival of Rialto number 5, who comes to visit our imaginary house, which is, of course, a picture of the human brain. So we look forward to that, in the next episode.